What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of Offset's third album, Kiari. This is coming a little less than 2 years since his last solo project came out, fall of 2023. Of course, Offset, the storied, what more can you say, member of Migos at this point. Career long since certified, legacy is secure, but the solo, legacy for Offset is still, pretty nascent. This is the third album. I don't think Set It Off from 2 years ago made too much of an impression, all things considered. So this is certainly another opportunity for Offset to furthermore establish himself as a solo entity post Migos, post breaking off from Quavo, of course, the passing of Takeoff. So I was hopeful that this would be as good as it ended up being. Offset's third album, Kiari, is definitely his best solo album to date. Offset has always had his impeccable and effortless flow as a rapper that has, of course, always been present in his music. But Kiari, the songs are just tighter, the beats are better, the features fit better. It's just a more well-constructed project than his past solo albums. And I think there's a lot here to enjoy if you've liked Offset in the past. I do think the album is a bit long. The middle part of it is pretty forgettable. But a lot of those tracks towards the beginning of the track list I think are big highlights. Bodies with Jid, Running Up with Key Glock, Pills with NBA Youngboy, Professional. There's some good highlights here. Whenever I think about Offset, and Offset specifically, and obviously, all the famous, the biggest songs he's done, like Ric Flair Drip, of course, comes to mind when you think of effortless Offset rapping. But to me, I often gravitate towards Brown Paper Bag off Culture One, which is already over 8.5 years old at this point. Crazy how much time has passed with Migos being as mainstream as they've been since then. That, though, at the beginning of that song specifically, I think that's peak Offset. That's peak, him having his way with words, the essence of the triplet flow, all those things we associate with the Migos. And I often just want to hear that whenever I'm listening to him. Give me that, because that is just so perfect and that is aged so well. It sounds so great still. And, you have to, I think, wait around for it, but he's still got it. He's still a really tight rapper. And I think he's lived a lot more life in those past few years. We don't have to get into the storied history now seemingly over between him and Cardi B, but he has some things to say on that. Kiari is, of course, Offset's given first name, so it's, I think, a bit more personal than he's been since at least Set It Off. Of course, the first solo album, Family of Four, unsurprisingly also had a personal side to it, but I think this one overall, the message is pretty clear. I just think the album was a bit long. Pills with NBA Youngboy, I think this song is really good except for its really terrible repetitive chorus, but I think the Offset verses are really good. There's actually some I think fun energy he's given there, and he's actually able to hold his own with NBA Youngboy, who's just oozing out energy on that feature. They've collaborated before. I think this is a highlight overall despite that chorus. Professional, I think, is very solid. I love those jazzy horns you get on that beat there. Again, showcasing a bit of a different side to Offset than just traditional trap production. Back in the Mode, I like, but I definitely didn't need a Lucci feature in 2025, that's for sure. Bodies, which was one of the singles featuring Jid. I love that choir at the start. It's definitely a memorable use of background choir. I wish it was present throughout more of the song. I think Offset still really brings it on that track, and Jid's also pretty memorable. Love You Down, this is Offset doing a bit more of a melodic thing. This is Offset doing what Quavo usually would have done on a Migos track, and I think it's fine. It's definitely not what you really want to hear from Set, though. Run It Up with Key Glock, though, that is what we want to hear from Offset. I think that song is just a great beat. Offset absolutely gliding. Again, the flow just so easy for him. Key Glock also always smooth as a rapper. They're a great pairing, honestly. I think the hook, though, unfortunately, a bit weak, a bit underwritten once again. Funny enough, there's a track called Set It Off on this album. There was not a track called Set It Off on the last album that was called Set It Off. Pretty hilarious. At this point, though, I think the album's pretty slow, pretty monotonous, which is something that Offset has been prone to do when you listen to enough of the tracks. Funny enough, you have Proud of Myself featuring Tizo Touchdown Offset walking around like Tizo, as Kendrick would put it, maybe. I think the Tizo feature's fine, but when you hear it like 3 more times, it's like kind of grating after a while. It's a little simple. I think the John Legend chorus, which is also sung, of course, a lot more memorable, just a lot stronger, more impactful. That song has some orchestral flair, which helps as well. So yeah, Offset, Kiari, probably his best solo album. You know, I don't remember too much about Family of Four, which I guess lends credence to that thought. Yeah, obviously the post Migos, solo Migos efforts have not been as impactful as when Migos was a group. That's usually the case with most soloists, apart from like Wu-Tang Clan, I guess. So like that's not a surprise. That's where we're at. But this still has plenty of merits too. I think Offset still has a lot to bring to the table. Still very capable. Still very technical. And yeah, let me know what you think of Offset's third album, Kiari. What you like most about it? And for more music reviews, more rap reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time.